Hey guys, happy Friday. I'll make this a quick one. You might notice I'm in the middle of a production storm. Oh my God, this room is a mess. Oh, it's a mess. Anyway, the title of this video is What It Takes to Be Happy. Why are we talking about this? Well, we often think that happiness is, have you ever asked yourself, like, am I happy? True question. Am I happy? And if not, what is it that I want? What is it that's going to make me happy? And on the forefront, it sounds like such a simple question, but really, when you think about it, it can be pretty deep when you start looking further into it. Because, at the beginning, you go, am I happy? Yeah, well, I've got all the things that I want, and I do want this. And if I get that, then I'll be happy. Or if I go there, then I'll be happy. Or if I change my job, I'm going to be happy. Or, you know, we've always got this mentality around when I get there, when this happens, I'll be happy. But like that true happiness. So I've been looking into this over the last few years, and it kind of happened inadvertently. Once you get into like personal development and goal setting, you really start to look into, well, what is happiness? What does that even mean? What does that entail? What would your life look like if that's the case? And this is going to be, I don't know, maybe a very cheesy answer, but I've experienced it, as time has passed, the more that I've looked into it. Happiness comes from within. What a groundbreaker. But really, it's been a crazy ride. Let me just share with you what it's kind of been like. So, there were times in my life where I kind of asked myself, like, why am I like this? Why do I have to go and build my own life? Like, can't I just do what everybody else does and like just get a normal job? Just do what is known to work. Like, why do I have to choose the harder path? And especially when times were tough. When times are tough, I really questioned, what was the point of all of this? Because when you choose to build your own path, it's not like you're just kicking back and waiting for things to happen. You're consciously making decisions, you're constantly experiencing the repercussions and when you make great decisions, it's like, woo. When you make crap decisions, you're like, ugh. And it's just this, wow, up and down, up and down. And so that's what got me asking, like, what does it take? Oh, hey, Miriam, how you going? Hey, guys, welcome to the live. We're talking about what it takes to be happy. And so this whole time, I really enjoy creating my own life, creating my own path. And after being in it, and rapid growth, you do start to see the benefits. You really start to see your life coming together, which is very different from a few years ago when I was sobbing in our toilet because I just thought, there were those times when you start questioning, like, is this worth it? I'm a failure, la, 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 la. And that's when I started thinking, well, like, can't you just be happy doing something else? And that's when I started getting into, like, I would say like a mix, like a hybrid between spirituality and like mindset work, because mindset work kind of felt like push, push, push. And then spirituality was like surrender, surrender, surrender. And then I found like, okay, there can be a bit of a balance. And as I started to understand that, I started to see that, while changing your internal state can create an amazing external state, well, it can do both, right? It can create a very crazy external state, but it can also create a very beautiful external state. But it all really starts from within. And I didn't really get this as thoroughly as I have until I started meditating. I'm like this because I'm not used to this language yet, and I'm not fully into that life yet, but I do know that it's something that I've wanted because honestly, I just want to be calm as fuck. I just want to be like, through everything in life. And what that means is like dedicating and committing to a practice which, involves meditation. It involves like sort of being cool no matter what. And I don't know if you've ever done, talk to me, guys, about what your experience is with meditation, because it's been a wild one. I knew that I wanted to start meditating like probably years ago. I just didn't even know what it entailed. It just sounded like cool. I was like, oh yeah, all the cool kids are like doing meditation and blah, blah, blah. All the leaders of the world, the ones, the good folks out there making change in the world, they seem to meditate. Okay, let me do it one time. So one random time, I went, Billy went out to go fishing. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock. No, it was 5 o'clock in the morning. And I was chatting with a friend on Instagram. And then I said, just one moment, I want to lay down. I want to meditate. This was probably, I'd done meditation before through yoga, through like other things, but I just still didn't really know what it should feel like, honestly. But this time I felt this crazy urge and I laid down and I like covered myself with a blanket. Well, it was summer and I turned on the AC, but I covered myself with a blanket and I was like, in my head, I was like, okay, Kristine, so now we're going to go into meditation. And then something stopped and it was like, you don't need to do meditation like that. It can be however you want it to be. It was like something took over and I kind of just rested. And I don't know whether I was half asleep or conscious, but something was going on. And then I remember certain points. I started getting visions of my life at the time. So at the time, Billy was working quite a lot. His shop was very new, so he was working more than ever. And he'd come home and because he stands a lot at work, so I would give him I would massage his calves because his legs would be really tired. And then like this voice was like not voice, but look, I'll just say I had some thoughts, and those thoughts didn't feel like my own because there were even words that were said in this time that I didn't quite get. Sam, you're back. What are you talking about again? Last time you mentioned something about a dog. You're going to get blocked soon, okay? Now, so what happened was I was there and then I got this thought and it was kind of like, it said, this is how you love. You're very giving. And at that moment during this meditation, I started like welling up because I was like, who is even saying this to me? Like, is this me? And things went by and I got more sort of like visions. I'm a very visual person. So whenever even I go through like coaching or therapy, I get like, I can visualize things. And then the next part that was really strong, like at the time I remembered how all of this went down, but it's been a few years now. And I must have been in that meditation for a while. And then 3 words came out. It said joyous, playful, and hearty. And so I'm here like laying down and it was just like the words were floating around, joyous, playful, and hearty. I'd never associated those words, with myself. And I was like, oh, what's that? And it was like this overwhelming feeling of like, this is you. Oh my God. It was like, this is you. And I was like, this is me. And I was like meeting myself for the first time. And it was like, yeah, joyous, playful, hearty. Like, look at you. It was saying that to me. And says, you're so joyous. Look at your personality. You're always like, no matter what, even like during the depressive times, even when I was going through that, it said like, you're just a very joyous person, no matter what. And your personality, you're very playful and hearty. When you love so heartily, like you give it. Oh my God, I'm even getting emotional talking about this. But it was the first time that it was like I was introduced to myself. And there was a huge part of me that didn't believe that that was me because those 3 things are amazing. And so anyway, I stayed in that meditation and I was like crying because I really like met myself. And then some other things happened and then I was like ready to close it off. So I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to close off this meditation. And then it kind of said, okay, so all you have to do is like turn your hands downwards. So I did like this. And then that was it. And then I like rubbed my hands like this and I opened my eyes and out of instinct, I wanted to check how long I was in that state for. And so I took my phone and I looked at my clock and I was like 29 minutes. So literally almost a 30-minute session. So that was the first time. And that's probably the first and only time I've had some sort of transcendent meditation experience. But then that's when I knew that there was something else going on. And it kind of got me, yeah, Miriam, thank you, yes. I don't know where those words came from, but I quite like them. I quite like them. And then that's when I started really thinking that there's something else going on. And it started making me realize that like all of this that we do and all of the desires that we have. So I like read a lot of books and I listened to a lot of books. One of them is The Science of Getting Rich. You'd be surprised at these books about think and grow rich and the science of getting rich and all these things about wealth. When you open the book and you actually read it or you consume the content, they all basically say it's like that which results to wealth is basically a byproduct of you being in your desire and doing it well and committing to it. Now, that is a very bad summary of these amazing life-changing books that I've read. But in terms of the book, The Science of Getting Rich, he talks about how our desires they're like innate. I hesitate to talk about this because I feel like I might be going too deep in that world, but it's like source or like a higher energy. We are like the people, we are the channel for which these things are done. And so that's where our desires come from. And when you go and you go and you get your desire, you bring it to fruition, that's like source expanding through you. Guys, you still with me? So it started getting me to think at the time, because when you want something, I remember myself anyway, when I wanted something and then I got it, like something that I really, really wanted, there was partial joy, but also partial guilt. Like, how could I have this? Like, how do I deserve this? Do I deserve this? And I almost had to go through a phase of like convincing myself, like, of course you deserve this. Like, you're totally fine. But it wasn't innate to me just yet. And that's what kind of got me on the whole journey to like, what does it take to be happy? Where is happiness? Because being on this journey and like all of this healing, all of this coaching, you do start to get the things that you first wanted. Like, I actually had to check the other day. I was writing down the things that have come into fruition. I'm like, wow, once upon a time I really wanted once upon a time I wanted this exact room to be exactly the way it is, but back then it wasn't that. And I did it, and it doesn't seem like much, but when you have desires and you're always putting it on the back burner and you just feel like it's never there, you just continue to desire it without it coming into fruition. Anyway, things have come into fruition. For example, this room and some of the things that have happened in business, some of the people that I have in my life. And I think to myself, if those things weren't around, would I still be happy? Because when you start getting the things that you want, you start identifying as that person who has things. But then what happens if they go away? Like, do you live in fear of them going away? Or is it more so that you can hone your internal state so that you have them and you can be happy when you have them, but you are not them. You are not the person who has that, and that's what your identity is. And so lately, probably about the last 3 months, I've been doing like a meditation practice every morning. It's only 10 minutes. It's only 10 minutes. And some days I do like a guided meditation. Guys, there's a really great channel here on YouTube. It's called Declutter the Mind. I really like it personally because there's no music in the background and the guy's voice is it's a very good quality sound, but he doesn't talk throughout the whole thing. It's guided so you can hop out. No, sorry. What I mean is sometimes there are silences and sometimes he speaks. But anyway, some of the meditations I've done in the past were like guided, and sometimes I would, I wanted to experience like being in a meditation, but no actual focus. Like, can I just be in there and like observe thoughts and let them dissipate, let them be and not judge them and whatever. Yeah, check it out. It's Declutter the Mind. I think it's a pretty new channel, but it's also growing. I tune into it probably every second morning. And through this meditation of like non-focusing, but actually just being, there's some things that I experience, like sounds get louder. You just start to really feel and be. And I was like, oh, this must be the internal state that they talk about, because some people, here's some examples. You might think that you're like super unhappy. And I used to listen to leaders who like talk about how to love your job if you hate it. like how to and I even remember listening to Osho. Do you know Osho? He got a bit weird. Things got a bit hairy with him towards the end, but there was a good portion of his work that was like very purposeful for me anyway. But he was asked, I guess, one of these questions: how do you be happy at work when you hate your job? And he was talking about like you got to find something that you're happy about in that. Yeah, it's just a one word, OSHO, Osho. So yeah, he has some really good work, but there's some things that I've heard about lately that towards the end of his career, things got a bit too full on. So and I haven't looked into that, but anyway, that's not the point. But I realized that what he was saying and what other people were saying had so much truth to it. And actually, I'd already applied it in my life when I was going through that deep depression. And I really could not find anything to be grateful for because I just thought everything was down a hole. I remember asking for help and I said, I need, in my mind, like I was in so despair. And I would say, I need help. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I was so lost. I didn't even know what to ask for anymore, because I didn't even know what I was asking for. So I just asked for help. I said, I need help. And then the first kind of thing that came to mind or in that situation, the first thought that I had was like, start with something that you're grateful for. Whenever I talk about these things, I still get emotional because I think I'm not going to get emotional, but then I start talking about it and I get emotional because this was a big part of when things started to change. And it said, look, ask for, just think of something that you're grateful for. And I didn't really know what to be grateful for. I said, I'm grateful that I can see. I'm grateful that I have two hands. And I literally just look at what I had, which is myself. I'm grateful that I can smell. And that started the momentum. And I realized that this way of being, of finding things that you're grateful for, and it sounds really cheesy, but it's almost like a gateway. It's like a pinhole in a room of darkness, and it's like a pinhole light, and it can open a lot of things. And so here's the thing. So you might, like a lot of us in our lifetime may experience being in situations that we're not in love with. And especially when you're not internally happy, it's very easy to look at your external situation as the cause for your lack of happiness. Like if you're in a relationship and you're just like, nah, it's my relationship. Can't stand him or her. It's just horrible. And he or her is like my biggest headache and it's horrible and I need to get out of this. And then you get out and it's fun for a bit and then you still find yourself unhappy. Or if you're in a job and you're like, oh, I hate this job. It's so crap. I'm just going to quit this job. So you quit the job and it's exciting for a bit. And then you find yourself in that same state of unhappiness because it's easy to look at I'm just going to be blunt. It's easy to look at the things external and think that they're the reason. But there's also like the inner. And this is kind of like a deep topic, but and there's so many levels to that happiness from within, like more than I ever actually imagined. It's both complex, but it's also really simple. And so for so many reasons, I'm quite grateful for the hard times that came around, because without that, I probably would never have recognized that I had some things that I really wanted to heal. So things like self-belief, things like people that we blame for the lack of smoothness in our life or the lack of happiness or why I didn't end up like this. I ended up like this because of you, and all of that is they're easy deflections, really. We can just look at them, and because once we deflect and we point at and blame the things around us, then we don't have to work on ourselves. We can just say, you can work on yourself. You guys need to change this. Your company needs to change this. And we can kind of like push on the work to them, because let's be honest, work and inner work is work. It's a bit of elbow grease, you know what I mean? You got to put in the effort. So it's much easier to look at everyone else like they've got to change. But I will say that it's worth the work. It's worth the work. There are some things which are hard to face, especially like even now when I talk about certain things that were really hard to deal with. It's really hard to admit when you're like not in a good place. Especially, I think we have this perception that happy people look a certain way, people who are mentally well look a certain way, and people who have mental health issues also look a certain way. And we have this like literal vision of what they look like, and sometimes we don't want to associate with that because I don't see myself in that. Like, that's so bad, that's so low, or that's so shameful, and we don't want to associate ourselves with that. And so even to be like, maybe I do need help, that in itself, and the identification of that, is already empowering in itself, because there's nothing actually wrong with that. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually great because you have like that kind of awareness. But yeah, Miriam, yes, girl, like it's so rewarding to resolve the deeper issues. And to be honest with you, like the actual resolution of it and the process of that resolution, yes, it's hard, but sometimes in reality, we don't even entertain the idea that it's harder to live with the non-resolution of it. Do you know what I mean? It's just this thing in the background that we live with, and it's not in the background, it's on our shoulders. It's sitting on our shoulders, and we get older and we get older, and things come on our shoulders and we don't like tend to them. Whereas, we do have the opportunity to be like, hey, you're a bit heavy over there. Let me just like lift you a little bit. Then let me like deal with you for now, and let's go through that, and slowly. And then you're like, you're not that fun. Limiting beliefs, these things that tell me I'm not good enough, or I'm horrible in relationships, or I'm horrible at, I don't like you, you can go. And it's much better to just to deal with it and actually build a life that we're like can be in and like enjoy. So, and I'm like full testament to that. I've had a lot of, for a non-confrontational, I remember when I was in university, I used to describe myself as a person who was non-confrontational. Yep, I remember going for a job, and I remember I was young, I was like 19, and they asked, what would you do when you have conflict with a colleague? And I was like, I'm not a very confrontational person, so I would avoid it. Because I thought that was the right answer. I thought it's better to avoid the confrontation and not have the discussion at all. Then as I've gotten older and learned that the only way to lead and grow is by being able to face confrontation and be in confrontation, but it doesn't have to be bad. Confrontation means you're just you're just tending to the situation and having a conversation about it. But I didn't understand that before. So for a person who was very non-confrontational, I'm actually very confrontational now. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just saying that now I'm not that afraid to have tough conversations. I mean, I'm not the bravest person yet, but I won't not have certain conversations which need to be had. You just got to do them anyway. And the more that you practice doing them, the less hard they become. The other thing is rejection, by the way. I think we fear rejection quite a lot. Yeah, Miriam, you were speaking my language. I would love to know, what do you do? Are you also a coach? I love the community here. Rejection is a hard thing. So this goes in personal life and work life, and like nobody likes to be rejected. And the more I started to learn from like different people and people who had reached certain things that I wanted on different levels, the top performing, or the ones that I really like, what are you studying? That I really admired, I started to shed some light on things that I didn't really see before, such as, hey, you guys know the lady who created the brand Spanx? It's like this international brand. It's like that shapewear, the original shapewear. She said something along the lines of, when I was young, my dad would tell us to go and fail every day. Like, what did you fail at? And it was so that you could get used to failure. Like, it's not a stigma. It's not a bad thing if you don't succeed at everything. And I thought that's such a great exercise. So anyway, oh my God, during the phase of the growth of my business, I was like, I knew that to level up, I needed to actually confront my fear of sales, direct sales. Even when I sound like, ugh, yuck. But actually, sales is not a bad thing. It's just a conversation that's influential, right? A conversation which influences a result. And babe, do you know what I did? I was like, all right, I need to face my thing of fear of sales so I can level up. So I was like, all right, today, Betty Joy, nice to see you. I have not seen you on live before. Welcome. So maybe this is relevant to you because you're in your business. But anyway, so I said, okay, so today I'm going to make a goal, like every day I'm going to do something where I need to talk about this product before I can reward myself with something. And even if that reward is like, for me, I really enjoy sending voice notes to my friends and blah, blah, blah. So, and sometimes I get caught up with that and feel like I'm productive when in fact I'm not productive at all. So I've got to find a way to promote this service. So my very first action was like, you're going to do a cold call. I was like, you're going to call someone and you're going to try to sell your service. Oh, can you imagine that? I don't know if anyone here has cold called before, but I was like, all right, who are you going to cold call? And what are you going to say? And I was like, I know. I went to this one service and it wasn't a good service because they didn't really want to help me. And so, so I kind of had like an entry point. I didn't tell them that their service was bad or anything, but I saw where my service fit in. Because like the lady on the phone had no time for me when I was like asking for information, and I was there. I wanted to pay. I wanted to do the service, but I just wanted to know more. But she had no time for me. She was grumpy and da da da. So I thought, great. Well, I teach video production, so this is what I'm going to pitch. I don't even remember what I said, and it was the whole exercise of calling. And even though I wasn't speaking to the decision maker, I was like getting ready to get rejected. And I was like, hi. I was recently a patient at your thing and blah, blah, blah. And I just wanted to know who I could speak with, who's in charge of like marketing and media productions or whatever, something like that. Even when I tell the story now, I'm like, bleh. And again, she had no time for me and she just gave me a generic email. But that's like totally besides the point, right? The fact was, like, the whole point of this exercise I thought was to get a yes, but it was actually just to get over my fear of rejection and just to allow myself to get rejected so that I can stop putting rejection on a pedestal like it's so important. And then I was like, all right, well, this is a numbers game. So anyway, she did give me the email and I did think about it afterwards and I was like, should I email? But then I was like, are they even your ideal client? I was like, no. So you did the task. It doesn't have to be perfect and you got rejected. So that's great. Now go and get rejected again. Oh, it's like, God damn. All right, who am I going to call now? And so it was this, it was like a trial and error. And literally it made me less afraid of like pitching my service and like not caring too much if I get rejected. You know, sometimes you look back at what you did and you're like, oh, cringe. I will tell you, I have so many of those cringe moments because obviously if you're not selling, if it didn't convert, then it wasn't the ideal influential conversation. But you know, it kind of put me in this state of like, this is just a game. This is just a game. And like, you can sort of learn about where your sweet spot is. And it taught me so much about authentic conversations because there were times where I kind of got good at it. I was like in the middle of it. And then I would start shying away from actually closing the sale. And then I would reflect after the conversation, like, you were so close, like what happened? And I was like, oh, I was in there and it was coming to the end of the sale. And I knew that this was the time I was going to close and I didn't want it to happen. So I spoke with my coach. Let me check out the comments. It seems so intimidating. Yeah, Miriam, it's so intimidating, but so worth it. I'm still not comfortable with it now. Maybe I should do it again. Maybe I should cold call someone and see what happens. You know, I'm in this coaching program where one of the exercises is you got to do something uncomfortable every day. And part of me was even thinking to myself, how long am I going to keep exhausting myself with these exercises? You know, because when something is not natural to you and you're constantly doing something in the name of growth, I'll admit, man, it is bloody exhausting sometimes. You know, some days you're hyped. You're like, yes, I'm ready for this. And some days you're just like, I just want to slip back into my old ways. But then what I realize is you can go and do those uncomfortable things until it becomes semi-normal or until it becomes like you've done it enough so that it's not as exhausting. But truthfully, my experience is at the beginning of creating new habits and leveling up, there's a level of exhaustion, not even exhaustion, but your consciousness needs to take over your subconscious. So if my subconscious behavior is like, I'll tell you the truth, my subconscious behavior is whenever I'm about to face something really scary, my instinct is to clean. Yeah, I want to clean my house. I want to clean my car. I want to do all these things. I want to do a makeover of my wardrobe. That's my instinct, right? Or even small things. I'll just like tidy this up, or I'll bake a little bit of something. And that's what I do. So that would be, that's how I am. I don't even have to think about it. I just like find myself doing something else. And so I was like, when I could see that I was supposed to do a sales call, and then instead, let me just polish the dishes again for the 7th time. I was like, no, don't think about it. Just do the task and tick it off. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's what I learned about this daily meditation is like, sometimes I felt like I needed to go into my meditation with like full zen and like being perfect. And it was just like be there. And that was an effort. And then one day I realized like, no, consistency is not about being perfect every single time. Consistency is about showing up every single time, no matter how imperfect you are. And so, oh yeah, so I'm just catching up on the chat. Yes, I can't wait to go back and check what I've missed. Direct sales, babe. Direct sales. What an experience. I still do it, like now. What is the 100 challenge? 100 no? Like you've got to wait for 100 no's? Tell me about that. Oh, Phil, welcome. The topic for tonight is what it takes to be happy. So, and I'm just telling the story. I don't know how we ended up talking about direct sales, but it became about it became about taking rejection off the pedestal, because we're like, I can't do this because it's just too bad. It's going to hurt. Like, I don't want to feel shame. I don't want to feel embarrassed. And, there's kind of like this attachment of like a feeling of like, it doesn't feel nice when you're a rejection. But why doesn't it feel nice? Maybe because we put a meaning to it. We made a meaning about like if someone says no, that you didn't do the right thing, or, it wasn't perfect. So anyway, so that's what I learned through that showing up every day for my 10-minute meditation is like, it doesn't need to be perfect every time. You just need to be there. And once you're already there, just be there and then involve yourself. And if it's not perfect, don't judge yourself. But if it is good, then great. And so where was I going with this? I think that's about it. When it comes to like what it takes to be happy, like the truth is there's no shortcuts to anything. And I think that if we're aware that like the very first thing, I know this sounds so cliche, but the very first step is to understand that there's a little bit of work to be done in that happy place. And it's so worth it because if I could see myself from 4 years ago and be like, babes, don't worry, everything will work out, just hang in there. I would have been like so thirsty to hurry up and get to this good place, like hurry up, Kristine, get me there now. And at the time, it really was more about riding the wave that was going downwards and all the waves were crashing upon me. That's what it felt like. But you're also allowed to rest, like just when you're going for something, you don't have to go at it all the time. You can. You'll hear about these personal development things like do it. And I've just done a whole rave about consistency. But that's about like habits and stuff. But I mean, like when you've got a long-term goal and even if your goal is like your inner happiness, sometimes taking a kick back to your old self is like the thing that you need to do for that day because you've done the work and you're still doing the work. And just because you kick back for a day doesn't mean you've failed for your life. It just means get back on the horse and carry on. So, Gabby, how to deal when you don't like your job, but you need to be there because right now I can't change it, or how to deal with anxiety. I'm struggling. Oh, we were touching on that earlier, Gabby, about how to like your job, but you don't need and you don't want to be there. And you're only there because you're like, I'm in this job because it's making the money that I need to be making. How do we start with that one? I've been in that situation. And what I was mentioning earlier is like the first step I mean, you're at the stage already where you acknowledge that you don't want to be there and that that's causing you to be unhappy. What would I do if I were in your shoes? I would look for the one thing at least, just one thing that I'm getting out of that situation. Just to give you some context, for example, when I was flying, a lot of people wanted to become a flight attendant, and but then when you're a flight attendant, you also hear a lot of people complaining about being a flight attendant. It's so funny, we want something, then we get it, and then we'll find something to complain about it. But that's the nature of people, you know what I mean? We're always going to find something. And I wanted to flip that around and be like, okay, if we can find something that we're not happy about, because a lot of people will say, I've got this degree, I've got a master's in this, I've got a PhD in that, and I'm here flying and I'm not using my brain. And I remember hearing that one time and I thought, well, that's fair enough. We're in the service industry right now. We're not analyzing stuff, or are we? We're analyzing behaviors. We're analyzing our... And so I remember just thinking, okay, find something that you're happy with. And for me, that was travel. This is and I don't want to minimize what you're feeling, Gabby, at all by any means, because I know what it's like to be in a situation where you're just like, this is not good. A couple of things that I would look at is, find one thing to be grateful for, which is not necessarily the money in that job. It might be like a skill that you're really sharpening, or sometimes it's the people that you're around, you're like, oh, I can't stand these people. What do I do? This is what I know. What I know is what you focus on, you create more of. And when you're in a situation where you feel as though you're surrounded by people and they're influencing your mood, then focusing also on that kind of amplifies it. So is there something that you can look at or focus on that is not that can sort of transform the energy? Because, they say energy doesn't just disappear, it merely transforms. So you have the power to transform that energy of frustration. Now, when it comes to anxiety, girl, I know that feeling so well. Sometimes it pops up with me still, especially when big things are coming or when nothing is coming, you know what I mean? And I hate to be the one that goes, oh, meditation is everything, but it is something that's really helped. So I want to say meditation is good. But let's say if I was at the beginning part and I didn't have a meditation practice or anything, what would I say about anxiety? Anchoring to your existing reality. So anxiety is caused, to my knowledge, anxiety is caused by our thoughts and worry of the future, something that's going to happen in the future, and we worry. And the worry becomes so amplified that it becomes crippling and it becomes anxiety. And I found that when I would get into this state of like, oh, I'm getting like really anxious, I feel really anxious, and it's a very uncomfortable feeling, that what I would do is I would ground myself into my present, right? And the way that I do that is like this. I think, okay, so what is happening now? Like, what is true? What is fact? What is happening? And it would literally be like this. Okay, so this is a mouse. There are people talking around me. I'm in this room. And it was literally like finding tangible, this is a glass, finding tangible things around me just to remind me that this is what's true. And what's causing my anxiety was something that did not yet exist. It's in the future. And so once I realized that, I'll be like, okay. And then might sound weird, but it helped me a lot. I would zoom myself outside of my life, right? In my mind. So I'd gather all these things like, okay, this is my reality. Okay, now I'm grounded. And then I would like imagine in the big picture of life, whatever that I'm worrying about in the future that's causing me anxiety, does that really matter? If I zoom out of my life and look at the world from like a bird's eye point of view, is all of this that I'm worrying about the be all and end all of everything? And then most of the time the answer is not really, because nothing is the end of anything, truly. I mean, that goes for good things that we love and we enjoy, and things that we really struggle with. You know, what do they say? What is that saying that everyone gets tattooed? Oh, this too shall pass. Good times pass, bad times pass. So, so with that said, every time I would feel anxious, I'd ground myself with things that are around me, and then I'd try to gain perspective, try to gain a bigger perspective, because this is how I'd see anxiety. It's like this thing, and it's consuming me, right? So this is me, and this is anxiety, and it consumes you. But then when you go, okay, I need perspective. I need to overcome this anxiety, and that perspective needs to be better than this perspective. They're both just perspectives. And I go, okay, zoom out. What does this matter in the scheme of things? You know, if do you know what I mean? And I don't know if this is making sense, but but it seems to work for me, especially because I was just having a chat with a friend. When you're in the thick of things, when you're in the thick of anxiety, it just seems that that is the only thing that exists. But really, that exists like in our mind in a moment, and that moment will pass. And if you feel as though, like, because does your anxiety turn to panic attacks sometimes as well? This is what used to happen to me. So after flying, I had anxiety, and I also had panic attacks. I didn't even know what a panic attack was. And then I'd be in it, and I'd come out of it, and I'm like, what the fuck was that? Um, and I would be embarrassed after that panic attack because I couldn't even explain what was happening to me at the time. And so anxiety would turn into this panic attack, and it would, like, my chest would tighten, and I would I would start feeling really unsafe, like I could trust nobody around me. And I realized, so when I first identified anxiety and panic attack, I realized the first step was to, like, know that it's there, and I'm just going to ride the wave. And by saying that I'm going to ride the wave, it almost dissipates that feeling by a percentage enough for it to start reducing. And so, yeah, and Gabby is like, is your work sort of related to something that also impacts your health? What I mean by that was, when I used to be a flight attendant, because of the shift work, it was very my circadian rhythm, my sleep patterns were totally off, and some people can really deal with that. People can actually, some people are okay with that. I was not okay with that, and I think that's where it started from, but I'm not sure. All I know is that when I was flying, when I was very exhausted and fatigued and repeatedly, that's when things like anxiety and panic attacks started to happen. And so you've got to ground yourself. You have power. So that's number one. You have power to, yes. And like Phil, who is also known as Cool for Rock and Roll here on chat, is saying, is what you focus on, it grows. And so the more you go, oh, I'm panicking. And then you start panicking about panicking. And then you're panicking about panicking, and panicking that people might see that you're panicking. And so it's like this stack of like panic. And but the good news is that you can also stack upon grounding thoughts. So here's the panic, and then the first thing that you've got to do, or what I find really helps me, is to acknowledge that, and I've got to ride the wave. Okay, breath, ride the wave. Okay, it's uncomfortable. Okay, I'm like, okay, ground myself. So what's here? What's now? Okay, and it starts to dissipate and dissipate and dissipate. If you feel as though you are in the thick of an anxiety attack or panic attack, this is what I found. I once had one when I was climbing like a mountain, and it was really steep, and the next step looked like if I fell, I'd fall into an abyss of water. And everyone ahead of me was totally fine, and I started panicking, but I was too ashamed to say that I didn't want to climb. I just froze. I couldn't lift my foot. And then I said, I'm not going to go. And then, anyway, long story short, I didn't go. They came back, and then I was still in my panic attack, my anxiety. But I was still ashamed, and I didn't know how to explain myself. That was the worst part. Like, when you're in anxiety and panic, you're not even in the state of mind that you can even explain yourself, because even you don't know what's going on. And then it was after that I figured out what was going on, because then after that I started crying, and I was so ashamed. I was just so embarrassed. And I said at the end, because my brother was actually there, we actually had a fight because he didn't know what was going on. And I was like becoming quite angry with him. I was getting angry because I felt like he left me and didn't give me the chance to go up there, blah, blah, blah. And when we were in the car, so what happened to me when I had that anxiety attack is I got so exhausted, and I actually realized that it was exhaustion sometimes pushes me in that direction. This was like years ago, but I remember I fell asleep in the car, and then when I woke up, my first thought was like, oh, that was like anxiety. That was an anxiety attack. And I said, and I was embarrassed because my brother was there, but also my best friend was there, and she'd never seen that happen. Neither of them had ever seen that happen to me before. And so I said, I woke up and I said, I'm sorry. And first of all, apologizing for that, I didn't even know whether it was I wanted to, because I was still ashamed. And when you're ashamed and your ego is still there, you don't want to admit that you're wrong. You feel as though everyone should help you. Because when you're in that situation, you feel helpless, so you want everyone to help you. And when they're not helping you, you feel like they're an enemy. And I just said, I think I was having an anxiety attack, and that's happened to me before. I just don't know how to deal with that. It's very, very uncomfortable. And I said, all I can do at this moment, and I think I'm still in it. I think I've got the remnants of an anxiety attack. But the only thing I can do is I can communicate with you that I'm not in a good space right now. And he heard me out. And part of me felt ashamed that I wasn't well, and especially to my best friend, because she'd never seen that before. Like, she knows me for everything else but that. It's hard when people who know you see you and behave that way, and then to top it off, explain. That's what it felt like to me. Like, I felt like I'm above this. Why do I need to explain that I'm having an anxiety attack? That's so embarrassing. Why am I having this? I'm not well. But I realized it's the only bridge between someone who's never seen you have that or experience that, and you actually experiencing that, but being able to not feel as restricted, because it can feel very restricting when you're going through it, is communication. And someone has to bridge the gap. Now, when you feel anxious and it's new to you, it's going to be hard to communicate it, but it's also for anyone who's experiencing it around you, like they're around you while you're going through it. It may be their first time as well, and they don't know how to react to it. And so the only gap, you can bridge that through communication. Now, they might not know to communicate with you, when they might not know what to say, because they might be afraid that they might say something that's going to cause you to panic more, or they literally will not know what to say. They might even think that you're attacking them, and so they might get defensive. But if you can identify that you are having that panic attack, and there is a small part of you, like even if it's just a 0.01% of you that says, I'm having one right now, take that 1.1% and use that to communicate and say, I'm having a panic attack right now. I'm not in a good place, and I don't feel right. This is going to be really strange. And that's it. You don't have to explain yourself, but if you can't explain yourself in that moment, when it's over, just let them know what's happening, because then that way you can understand how to be around each other when you're experiencing it. So you used to work with traveling insurance, Gabby, but because of COVID now I work with funerals as well. It's so scary and sad, all the deaths people are going through. I'm from Brazil. Damn, that's I feel you. Well, I want to say I feel you, but I empathize with you. You're literally facing death, like literally. You're looking at people who have died. First of all, hats off to you. But I'm just going to follow up with the Miriam, I really needed to hear this. Gabby, my heart is, self-positive talk and disciplining your mind. It's like repeating the lesson over and over. When did you have your first panic attack? I had my first panic attack probably after flying, actually, Phil. Hope and Help for Your Nerves. That sounds like a good book to check out for sure. And Gabby, that might help as well. But I mean, I wish I knew what to say, especially because for the context of the work that you're in, you know how there are some people, they're comfortable with death. And for them, that's like a natural, they can face it and they can be in it and not be affected by it. And then maybe for you, it's something that impacts you a lot more because you feel connected. You feel connected to the people that you're seeing. And it's probably a lot more amplified, as I can only imagine that it feels a lot more amplified, because you feel as your everyday involves seeing dead people. Is that what you work with funerals as well? So like if you work with funerals, so you're seeing this, and this is like, I think for me, my number one fear is death of someone that I love. So I can't even imagine what this is like. But you may take energy as well. Now, this might sound a bit far out there, but sometimes, you know, when you're in a specific space and you take energy, like you can feel energy, right? You like can't always touch everything, but you can feel the energy of people. If you're around sadness, then you feel sad as well. I just wish I could say something that would make a difference for you. And I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes of being in that situation, which is really impacting you. Truthfully, you might just need support where you can talk about your feelings like this, because sometimes it sounds like you're going through a very deep transition, but it might not feel, on the surface it doesn't feel like it, because on the surface it looks like you're going through a career change, right? So you're like, oh, it's my job. But really, there's a transition in your life and your environment, and the state of mind that you're in. Travel insurance is quite different from working with funerals, and that in itself is there's quite a big bridge between those two things. So it might help to, is there support there? Like, is there a place that you can go to, or a person that you can speak with about like what you're feeling in your work? And yeah, totally, platonic sage, sometimes we need professional help. And I wish that this was more like normalized, because like I said, I think the thing about getting professional help is the shame. I know someone who she wanted to get help, but she didn't want to look weak to her parents. And it's almost like if you get professional help, you're seen as weak, or you're seen as like, and I don't know whether professional help is something that really the way we do it is, I always say I get coaching, which is what I get coaching. But at the time where I needed professional help, I said to my partner, I need help, babe. I really need help. But at the time I didn't really trust psychologists or psychiatrists for a big reason. Like this, I put a YouTube video up about something that happened when I was still flying, and I got sent to the psychiatrist, and it was just like unexpected. I did a test and I manipulated the test results. I wanted the annual leave. I wanted to go to Vegas with my girlfriends. Believe it, this is how that started. And I manipulated the test of my mental state so I could get time off. And I got the time off. But anyway, she printed out the test and she was like this. She's like, oh, you're deeply depressed. And just like that. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, I'm going to prescribe you some medicine. And I didn't want that. I just wanted to go to Vegas. But next minute, I've got a prescription for medication. And then right after that, she started talking to me about her new hairstyle. And I was like, what a turn. How did this turn? And so it kind of made me feel like I didn't want to go to a professional in case the first solution was medication. I just was not there. But even honestly, like the talking, I know that it sounds very simple, like does it even help? But talking with the right people can help, and it's more about coping mechanisms. Coping, it sounds sad, but management of what you're going through, management of what you're going through, how to transition to that. Sometimes identifying as well, like why it's impacting you a lot, can help you understand how to manage that as well. You know what, you guys, I'm bringing on Karen, you know, the lady who I had on last week, ex-Singapore Airlines crew. Well, she's actually got into psychology after all of that career of flying and then resetting her life and then working at Hooters after she left the airline and like door-to-door sales. She's got a background in psychology and something called neuro-linguistic programming. And neuro-linguistic programming is about your brain, patterns, thought patterns, the brain. And I want to talk to her some more. I think she's got a lot to share. I just want to know what topic you guys want me to bring her in for. But she is a wealth of personal growth knowledge and the mind. A lot of these things that we've talked about today, happiness, wellness whilst you're in a situation that you don't want to be in. How can you be well when you're in that situation? Especially a situation which is your livelihood, you know, like the job that you are in, you're keeping it because it's actually allowing you to live your life, have your house, have your, you know, all of the necessities of life. So I kind of want to bring her in. So hang on. I totally believe that. I'm not ashamed. I actually went to a psychologist, but she said that I don't need treatment because I don't have trauma from the past. Yeah, maybe sometimes you, and honestly though, you also got to remember that like professionals, they're also people who have their own biases. And I'm not saying this in a bad way, but everyone is just human. It's just that they choose a career path. And sometimes psychologists, doctors, people that we trust for professional help like that. I was saying to a friend of mine, like, this might sound weird, but when it comes to me choosing professionals that I work with, I also, apart from their degree or apart from their specialization, I look for traits such as optimism, not optimism, like unbiased or just open minds. So, because I know that biases can impact the advice that they give you. And basically what I look for in a professional is self-awareness. I laugh like this because I'm like, is that in anyone's resume? Does anyone put on their resume like self-awareness 10 out of 10? But it's actually, I find that I can tell in conversation sometimes for the specific type of advice I'm asking what self-awareness is like within a person. And so for that reason, it took a while for me to find the right dentist, the right doctor, and even my doctor at the moment, she's great, but I can also see her biases. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, I can see through everyone, blah, blah, blah. But the reason why I say this is because when we go and work with professionals, we trust them for everything that they say, right? Because they have the expertise. But the reason why I look for self-awareness is because when you have someone who's an expert and knows very well about their, you know, whatever it is that they specialize in, but they're also self-aware or they do things to improve their self-awareness, then I feel like you can get better quality advice. And sometimes it takes, you know, you go to one and you're like, maybe yes, I'm not sure. But sometimes you just find one, you're like, I really love that person. And there's a very high chance. I mean, the population is big, right? So there's a percentage of people that you're going to be like, nah. And then a percentage of people that you're going to be like, yeah, I'll stick with this person. Yeah, find another one. Betty's like, Gabby, yeah, find another one. They don't offer it. Okay, maybe you should speak to human resources, avoid some of them, rude psychologists and therapists, be selective. Yeah. I would be interested, actually, and maybe I should do a little call out on Instagram and find out and try to get, it would be nice to have like a directory of people like that we could refer to. I wish if you were here in Australia, I'd be like, you know, honestly, sometimes I look for, maybe it might not necessarily be a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but there are other kind of, their titles are, this is why I say sometimes, because I work with coaches about their title, like what do you do? And when you say you're a coach, what does that mean? Because sometimes like you got to connect with the right people. So I might even, if I were in your shoes, I'd even look into, I don't even know if this is the right thing, because yeah, you've got psychologists, you've got psychiatrists, but like I said, if it was me, if I was in your shoes, I would look into like wellness, like people who help with wellness, because it's about your wellness. Like I had a wellness coach, I've had a few in the past, and one of them, he goes, health is of the body, wellness is of the soul. And I was like, yeah, that's deep. But you know, someone like that, like a psychologist who also believes in wellness therapies, you know what I mean? If that makes any sense. I don't know what you would search in Brazil to find that, or even on YouTube. What is my phone ringing for? Do I have feel? No, it's just experience, I guess. Because same like you, Gabby, you know, I didn't want to get help because I didn't trust the help. And that caused me a lot of grief. That's actually what caused me to find my own solutions. Like I don't know whether it's right to recommend self-healing because it can be hard. But what happened was because I didn't like the first psychologist that I got, and I felt like I was like, surely the solution to this isn't just medication. That's how I found a personal development course, and that, you would think, you know, like, how did you end up in a personal development course when you needed like help, mental health help? But it was the first thing that I went to because I was so lost, you know, so lost. And that's what I ended up doing. And I was like, right, okay, I learned something about myself in this one. I'll do another one and then another one. And then for me, business was my channel of growth. But ultimately, everything that I've grown in wasn't necessarily in business. So my business has grown as a result of my mental health and my well-being being intact. What? That's actually what happened. I've never said that before. When you're not well, it's hard to grow a business from scratch, you know? And so anyway, and so the things that I've experienced, I'll tell you what I've done. I've done personal development, something called Landmark. Now, some people have opinions about this. Some are like, yeah, I love it. Some people are like, hate it. And then I've done hypnotism. Didn't really like that. It was powerful, but I realized about myself, I don't like therapies where I'm not fully conscious. I like to be able to be conscious. I tried ayahuasca. This I don't. A lot of people. It's very. It's intense, is all I'll say. It's still unfolding everything that I learned at ayahuasca, but it was so intense. Talk about someone who doesn't want to be out of control. That was that for me. I've done so hypnotism, ayahuasca, Landmark, Forum, wellness coaching. These are my favorites. Wellness coaching, where you're literally talking through, because the thing is as well, like one session with a psychologist, I don't know whether that's you can automatically tell that you don't have any trauma. The spectrum of trauma is so broad that I don't believe that we can conclude out of sitting down one time that you have no trauma from your childhood, because that's like saying that something really, really bad had to happen to you for you to feel like this. But that's not really the case. Look, I'm not a psychologist, but from what I know now of the brain is that, and of the human and of our soul, is that we're not a one layer thing. It's not like, oh, I've never had trauma, so therefore you have no right to feel anxious in your job. That's not really the case. It's a layer of things. So certain things that might have happened, which may not appear to be trauma, and maybe they're not even trauma, but belief systems. So much. Sorry, I'm sitting on an exercise ball, you guys. So anyway, going back to that thing, so hypnotism, ayahuasca, personal development, and wellness coaching. My last wellness coach involved diet. And what else have I done? Consistent coaching. That's my favorite, because you get to talk. You get to talk through what you're experiencing and what you want to achieve. Even though it's been in the context of business, a lot of it has been in the context of spirituality. So yes, it does. Thanks for the tip. I'll look for that. Absolutely. Life experience will teach us to improve and get better. The mindset, your well-being, inner child, shadow work. Yeah, that's true, because today, the anxiety attack, I went to a GP doctor and she took 10 minutes to make me feel good. Just talking to, yes, honest conversations, honest quality conversations. That's really what you're after. So sometimes like the degree is like, it's in addition to that, because they'll understand like how it all works. But someone who's just able to have authentic conversations with you is what you need. I'm not saying that as a prescription, like this is what you need, but it really helps because you don't feel as though you're just being put into a corner of yes or no. And I think when you're experiencing these things, it's never just a yes or no. You know, it's like layers and layers and layers of things. Gabby, this probably, you might not see it right now, but maybe this is one of the most life-changing things that you might be experiencing for the better, because it's going to get you to look at things that may be there and just your situation at the moment is bringing it up. You know how they say if there's something underlying, you've got to bring it up so you can finally deal with it. When it comes up, it feels like horrible, feels like vomit. But it's got to come up for us to have the opportunity to deal with it. And the filtering system of who you're going to work with and who's going to help you sometimes takes time, but sometimes it doesn't take that much time. Sometimes you'll just connect. You might find therapies that work really well, and then some therapies that you're like, definitely no. I've had both, and I know which is a no for me now, and I know which one is a hard yes. So thanks, Jen. Yeah, well, that's what my meditation said. Joyous, joyous. What does it say? Playful and hearty. So Gabby, I really wish you the. I hate saying this because I feel I'm disconnecting from you, but I really do send you all my love, and I really hope I'm sending it out there. I'm putting the vibes out there that you connect with the right person for this, because even though it's a hard place to be in, sometimes it's the toughest places, and it's often the toughest places that get us to get to healing. Whatever it is that doesn't mean you're broken. Nobody here is broken. We will just have experiences, and that's it. That's all it is. We just have experiences, and we just experience emotions, but we are perfect beings. We are perfect as we are. We're just humans going through an experience, spiritual beings going through an experience, human experience, and that's all it is. So don't, if there's any advice I can give you, babe, like honestly, this sounds so cheesy, but love yourself through this process. I still do that now when I feel like I'm not the best in the day, or I feel like, I don't know, when I'm feeling a bit down, the first thought that I'll give myself, and I give it to myself, it's a thought that I consciously give to myself, is like, I love you, babe. I've got to tell myself that. So love yourself through this process. I think it can be hard to love ourselves when we're experiencing things that we're not proud of. And I'm not saying, oh, it's something to be, but I do say it a lot, because it's still, no one's out there going, yeah, man, I am an anxious person. Woo! It's not like, it's not like I won the first prize to anything. We're so proud to say that. But when we have things like this or experience things like this, we want to more keep it to ourselves. But all I'm saying is that priority number one, love yourself through this process. Be kind to yourself through this process, and like ride the wave. It will pass, and you will go through this experience. So yeah. Well, guys, it's 3:15 p.m. here in Friday. So I think I've kept you guys long enough. Thank you for being here with me. If it's April 29th, there's the 30th for me and Kristine. So from the future. Yeah, that's right. I love you guys. I have no idea. This is like my dream group of people. Thank you for all the love. Next week I'll be bringing Karen back on. She is, she has a background in psychology and NLP. So if you have any questions, you're always welcome to put them in this chat, put them in the comment section, put them in. I'll do a post so you can put them there, and we can talk about that, because she might have the more psychologist perspective of this. Mine's more experiential. Anything you want to talk about. So I'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place. Thank you for being here. Love you guys. See you then.